Hey you guys, it's Amelia here. Thanks so much for watching. Please, if you like my channel, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. It really helps me out. Also, you can check me out on Patreon. I'll put a link up there if you're interested in helping me keep making these videos. Today, we're talking about how to get your horse more uphill. So this is like such a common theme, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten my test back from a judge, or one of my students gets their test back, and the comments over and over again are like, on the forehand, horse needs to be in better uphill balance. And this is hard when you get your test back because you think, okay, so I get it. Part of dressage is getting my horse more uphill, but how do you do that? How do you get your horse more uphill? So comment below, let me know if you've ever been in this situation. In today's video, we're going to go over a few things. First thing is we're going to talk about conformation and how this affects the uphill balance, because that's kind of what you need to understand. And then the second thing, we're going to talk a little bit about rider position, how this affects the horse's balance. And then the third thing is I'm going to give you two really simple, good exercises that you can use to get your horse off the forehand, engaging in the hindquarters, and better balance uphill. So I hope you enjoy this video today. All right, so we're starting out first of all with considering conformation. So conformationally speaking, some horses are naturally more uphill than others. Over the years, as people have been breeding Warmbloods, they've tried to breed them to be more uphill balanced. So what this means, if you look at a horse and you put a line basically from the point of their croup to their withers, if it goes uphill, like if this is a butt and that's the withers, if the line is uphill, your horse is uphill. Most horses tend to be either level or actually a little downhill. Naturally, horses tend to carry a little bit more weight on their front legs, which is the opposite of what we want in a dressage horse. We want more weight on the hind legs. So Warmbloods tend to be uphill. Horses like quarter horses and thoroughbreds tend to be downhill. Those are just generalizations. Of course, there's exceptions to that. So that's the first thing to consider. If your horse walks out of the stall and it's uphill, good, you're ahead of the curve. If your horse walks out of the stall and it's downhill, you've got some work to do. So I'm not saying that you should give up on dressage, because to me, I would way rather have a horse that's either level, balance, or downhill with a good attitude, a good and willing mind, than an uphill horse that's just a disaster and not willing. So always consider that, even if your horse isn't built uphill, that doesn't mean you should give up. You should keep working at it, because there's a lot of exercises that you can do to get your horse uphill. So that's conformation just with them standing. Now, the really cool thing about horses is that even if they're built downhill, you can get them to come uphill. Okay, so two reasons why we can get them uphill. The first is that if you look at their hind end, you want to find a horse that has good angles on the hind end. To the horse's hip, that should be a 45-degree angle. And then from the hip to the stifle, another 45-degree angle. So you want to have nice angles on the hind end. That's going to allow your horse to to fold their pelvis under and lower their hip, which is going to make them more uphill. The other really cool thing about horses is that horses can actually pop their withers up. So their withers aren't connected to the shoulder blades. They have this thing which is called thoracic sling muscles. And so horses can actually use those muscles to lift up their withers between their shoulder blades. So it's really about getting the horse's withers up and lowering their croup, which is going to allow you to get them uphill. Okay, so enough about conformation. I'm going to turn you over to a little riding clip that I did, which I hope helps you guys understand how to get your horses uphill. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few tips for how to get your horse more uphill, some exercises that you can do while you're riding. So the first thing that I want to point out is that when you want to get your horse uphill,
it's not just pulling their head up and raising their neck up. Like just because I do this, that doesn't, just because I raise my horse's head up doesn't make my horse more uphill. You want your horse to get uphill because they lower and come under behind. So the first thing to consider when you want your horse more uphill is your position. So if you're slouched and leaning forward and looking down, your horse is not going to be uphill. If you want your horse to be uphill, you have to sit uphill, which means you have to get your head up, you have to get your shoulders back, you have to have a good posture with your chest open and your shoulder blades together. So, and as you're going in your ride, if you feel your horse going downhill, reset your position to stay uphill. So the best exercise you can do to get your horse more uphill is transitions. So I'm going to show you a few simple transitions that you should be able to do on any horse. The first one is going to be trot, walk, trot transitions. The reason transitions get your horse uphill is that it forces them to lower their hindquarters and step under behind. So I'm going to make a transition to the walk. I'm doing this starting on a circle. I'm going to think of a little shoulder-fore as I go to the walk. I'm going to stay and let him settle a little in the walk. And then I'm going to push him back up to trot. So in that moment when he went from walk to trot, he had to push off of his hind leg. And when he pushed off his hind leg, that got his withers to come a little bit more up, and he was for a moment more uphill. So again, shoulder-fore and a transition into the walk. And then I'm going to close my leg, and there, that moment, he came more uphill. So there he kind of misunderstood and he went to canter. I'm not going to punish him for that because it was an honest misunderstanding. I'm just going to simply repeat that I want walk and then trot. You don't have to canter. Oh boy. Okay, so then once you have your walk, trot, walks, you can work on trot, canter, trots. And again, I'm always rethinking, okay, am I looking up? Are my shoulders back? And I'm going to go up to canter. So it's really important when you do these transitions that even though you're thinking about uphill, that your horse doesn't invert their neck. So you want, like I said, that they come uphill because their croup goes down and their withers come up. You don't want them to just pull, like to just lift their head up. You want them to lift right here. So I'll show you a little picture, but horses can actually lift up their withers between their shoulder blades. And that's really what you want when you think about your horse coming uphill. So in this trot canter, I'm thinking that he lifts his withers there. So you saw he didn't lift his head. He just kind of lifted up with his shoulder and lowered in his croup. Okay, so once you have mastered your trot, canter, trots, the canter, walk canters are where the horse really is forced to come uphill. So the reason that is because in a walk canter, you're skipping a gait. So you're going right from walk to canter. And in order to do that, the horse has to really sit and lower behind and lift in front. So these are still a little new to this horse. And he gets a little tense about them because he starts anticipating, and because I think he doesn't always want to use his hind end. So I'm thinking just a little shoulder-fore right. I'm rocking my seat back, and I want him to lower behind and bring his withers up in that transition. So every transition I do is a moment that my horse is coming uphill. Well, if you do the transition correctly. Again, walk, canter. There, you see in that moment of walk, canter that my horse needs to lower his croup and bring his withers up. So there's a moment there where he comes uphill. So now in the canter walk, I'm going to make a small circle. I'm going to collect, sit, walk. That was better. So in order to do a good canter walk, again, your horse has to stay uphill. Now for walk, canter, there's a moment where my horse sits and lifts up through the withers. So I'll link also some more videos you guys can watch on transitions. I have a ton of them because transition work is so important. But the last exercise I want to show you for getting your horse uphill is shoulder-fore and shoulder in. So the reason that this gets your horse uphill is that in shoulder-fore and shoulder in, you're driving the inside hind leg underneath the center of gravity and towards the outside rein. So here in shoulder in, I'm driving his left hind leg up to my right rein. And in doing that, I'm forcing like one side at a time him to get more uphill. So here I'm forcing the left hip down and the right fore up. So this is getting my horse more uphill by engaging that left hind leg. So it's really important to do the shoulder in on both sides because you'll find every horse has a weaker hind leg. So you want to make sure that you strengthen both hind legs equally. For this horse, I think the right shoulder in is going to be harder. So in the right shoulder in, I'm engaging that right hind leg to my left rein. I want 3 tracks. Good boy. And when I'm riding that shoulder in, I want to feel him grow taller in his withers. There. Good boy. Okay, so how you sit, transitions, and a little shoulder in, those are 3 things you can do to get your horse more uphill. I know it can be really frustrating when you have a horse that's built downhill, and that you just see on your score sheet, more uphill, more uphill, more uphill. So you're kind of always working against your conformation, but you can get horses to engage those hind legs and sit a little behind and come more uphill.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out my email list if you're interested in getting more input and videos like this. Thanks so much for watching.